We shall move on to the second part, Anniversaries of War, that is, the analysis of the poem. Tell God, I brought my children to the mount, where once I fought battles, so they would understand the things I did do and forgive me for the things I didn't do. Tel Gad is a large multi-period site that is located in central Israel. It was inhabited from proto-historic times to modern period. Archaeological excavations show that the site was continuously inhabited since 5th millennium BC. Tel Gad was under Palestine. During the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, Palestine population was expelled. Today, it is part of Israel National Park. Tel Gad has a biblical reference. It is often referred to as Gath of Philistines. The site most favored as location of Gath is the archaeological mound or tell, known as Tel es Safi in Arabic and Tel Safed in Hebrew. There are many references of Gath in Bible, and the main one as the last refuge of Anakims in front of conquering Israelites. The Jewish people always cherish the ideal that they are the God's chosen race. This idealism is their core principle that they are the chosen race through which God will send His Messiah, the promised Savior who will save the world. And Israel was the promised territory for them by God. Every misfortune and good fortune were analyzed through this lens of their spiritual relationship with God. More often, they lived in exile. They considered the non Jews as Gentiles and who are under the wrath of God. Every time they sinned against God, Gentiles will win over them, and their victory over the enemies were interpreted as God's protection. Thus, Telgath has a lot of importance in the Jewish history. Capturing Telgath symbolizes their everlasting victory over Gentiles. Yehuda Amichai has participated in the war that captured Telgath. The place has a lot of stories to say. In the poem, the poet remembers an occasion in which he took his children to the mount. Thus, the poet has a personal relationship with the place where he was victorious once. Maybe he brought them to tell them the tales of victory. But in the next two lines, he says, they would understand the things I did do and forgive me for the things I didn't do. They would understand why he did or was forced to do or fought in the battle and forgive what he hasn't done. These lines explicate the tension within the poet, the confusion or disturbance he had in his mind. The next stanza. The distance between my striding legs and my head grows bigger, and I grow smaller. Those days grow away from me, these times grow away from me too. And I am in the middle, without them, on this mount with my children. The next stanza explicates the confusion he had in his mind. My striding legs and my head. These two expressions represents his physical and emotional growth, respectively. It symbolizes as he grows old, the youthful convictions and idealism has begun to fade away. The poet indicates that the distance grows bigger and I grow smaller. My convictions, my idealism, my staunch belief for the state of Israel, whatever made me, it grows smaller. In the next line, he explains those days, that is, those days of idealism, those days of strong convictions and ardent belief in communal feeling, and the establishment of the state of Israel. Everything grows away from me, as if I have no relationship with them. And what is his fate now? These times grow away from me too. He cannot adapt to these times, the ideology of the present day generation. Those days and these times points to a sea change that has happened in the Israeli society. I have already mentioned in part 1 about the change of perspective and the growth of individualism in the society. These times grow away from me. The poet has nothing to grab on. He can't understand what is happening around him. And I am in the middle. The poet is left without his convictions. He displays his mental state of agony and confusion, that too on this mount, the place for which he has won many a battle, and the memory of which should have elicited pride in him. And now he is left without anything. Now, when he recollects, he feels that everything has become meaningless. These lines explain the existential crisis he feels at the fag end of his life. There is nothing he can convey to the next generation other than his confusion. Now, the third stanza. A light afternoon wind blows, but only a few people move in the blowing wind. Bend down a little with the grass and flowers. Dandelions cover the mount, you could say as dandelions in mount. In the next stanza, he moves on to generalization of the situation. A light afternoon wind blows. Wind can be sensed but not be perceived with eye. It indicates a change in the atmosphere. The poet has also sensed a light change in the aspirations and convictions around him. Another point is, is that it is an afternoon wind, not in the noon or the prime time. So, a wind after the prime time, something that has happened after the main situation, main victory. Even though it is a light wind, a few people, a handful of them, move in the blowing wind or adapt to change. They bow down to the course of wind like the dandelions. The few people who could adapt to changes are referred as dandelions. Dandelions are taken as symbol of fighting through challenges of life and emerging victorious. Those who can adapt to it, they succeed. The poet compares those who have adapted as dandelions and they inhabit the mount. The last stanza. I brought my children to the mount, and we sat there on its back and its side, as in the poem by Samuel Hanagrid in Spain. Like me, a man of hills and a man of wars, who sang a lullaby to his soldiers before the battle. Yet I did not talk to my heart as he did, but to my children. To the mount we were resurrection, fleeting like the springtime, eternal like it too. The next stanza concentrates more on the next generation. There is a reference to Shmuel HaNagrid or Samuel HaNagrilla, the Andalusian Jew of Spain. He was an inspiration for Yehuda Amichai, and of which Yehuda Amichai freely acknowledges. He identifies with Hannagrid as man of hills and man of wars, a man of strong convictions and who fought for the well being of Jews and who strengthened the Jewish soldiers to give up their life for the cause of Jewish state. In the next line, he highlights the poet's lack of conviction. Yet I did not talk to my heart as he did, but he did talk to his children. He did talk to his children about Telgath and his victories about the past of Jews and Jewish state. When compared with the mound, or from the perspective of the mound, the generation of Amichai is a resurrection because they have conquered it and restored the state of Israel. This generation is fleeting and eternal at the same time. They have no permanence. They have no permanence. They should pave the way for many and move out still. They remain they move out, sorry. Still, they remain eternal like the mount. The coming generation will remember them for sure, but in regards to the convictions and beliefs of the poet, it will be taken as fleeting. So this poem it explains the anniversaries of war. In each anniversary, what the poet feels. Each anniversary takes away the pride in him and it fills him with confusion. And what the poet is confronting every day, the ideals that he have fought for, it has ended. He believed they had a dream, they had a society in their dream, but what was materialized was nothing compared to their dream. What materials, or in simple terms, what materialized was just the opposite. So, this is what the poet has to say. In each anniversary, he is filled with more and more confusion rather than the sense of pride. This is the end of the analysis. If you have any doubt, please contact me. Thank you.